It is now my honor to call upon the Director General, His Excellency Ahmedou Soumchou, to make a statement.
Madam Deputy Mayor, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to welcome you to this very special ceremony. We are here to recognize two remarkable individuals who will receive this year's OPCW The Hague Award. Their achievements serve to remind us that the goal of chemical weapons-free world is not the sole preserve of the OPCW and its member states. Rather, it's an endeavor shared by many, an endeavor that is actively pursued by individuals and groups in industry, scientific research, education, and civil society. For successful chemical disarmament relies on a collective global partnership involving many stakeholders and experts. Some of these individuals have earned our admiration for their outstanding efforts to advance the noble goals of the Chemical Weapons Convention. I am very pleased that the OPCW The Hague Award provides us with a prestigious vehicle for honoring such efforts. The award was set up, as you will recall, to maintain the legacy of the award of the Nobel Peace Prize to the OPCW in 2013, a legacy we are all immensely proud of. As the host of the OPCW, the city of The Hague has shared in this pride, and it makes a generous contribution to the award, which bears its name alongside that of the OPCW. It gives me great pleasure to announce the two winners of the OPCW The Hague Award this year, and they are Professor Alistair Hay of the United Kingdom and Professor Mahdi Balalimud of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Please join me in congratulating them. Professor Hay has had an eminent career as a toxicologist over 4 decades. His association with chemical weapons dates back to the 1980s, when he conducted sampling and analysis in the Iran-Iraq War and helped shape investigative mechanisms related to chemical weapons use. Professor Hay has rendered especially valuable service by training healthcare professionals dealing with the effects of chemical weapons. He has conducted research on the health effects and public health responses to chemical incidents and made contributions as an expert on decontamination. Professor Hay has also been an ardent and prominent advocate of science working in the service of peace. This has included his contributions to OPCW-hosted workshops on education and outreach. More recently, he took an active part in the development of ethical guidelines for chemistry professionals. Some of his colleagues describe him as a force of nature when engaging students and fellow scientists on these issues, and his recommendations have guided much of our work in broadening our community of stakeholders. Professor Balalimud is also an expert toxicologist who has dedicated his career to assisting and advocating for victims of chemical weapons. As a medical practitioner, he had extensive first-hand experience in treating victims of chemical weapons during the Iran-Iraq War. Since then, Professor Balalimud has worked to enhance medical response practices for victims of chemical warfare, and he has researched the long-term consequences and immunological implications of exposure among survivors. Among his other achievements has been the establishment of a treatment ward and intensive care unit in Iran for patients affected by chemical weapons, as well as a toxicology laboratory in Mashhad. He has actively promoted better understanding of the plight of chemical warfare survivors in many fora. Some of you may have attended the launch earlier today at the OPCW of the Practical Guide for Medical Management of Chemical Warfare Casualties, an effort which owes much to the direction and energy of Professor Balalimud. For the challenging task of selecting this year's awardees, I would like to thank the members of the award committee, Mayor Josias van Aartsen of The Hague, Ambassador Francesco Azzarello, Chairperson of the OPCW Executive Council, Mr. Carl Dooley, Council Secretary of the International Council of Chemical Associations, and Dr. Mark Ciza, President of the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. The committee received many nominations of very well-deserving candidates. This only goes to show the strength and energy of our partners in our vital mission to rid the world of the scourge of chemical weapons. I invite states parties, NGOs, and other relevant bodies to submit nominations of suitable candidates for this award in the coming years. This year, against the backdrop of chemical weapons used in Syria, I think it's especially fitting that we honor individuals who have worked to alleviate the suffering of the victims of such attacks. Just as we seek to preserve the legacy of the Nobel Peace Prize through this award, we must ensure that the suffering of thousands of victims is not forgotten. For it shows us in a very real and tangible way the indiscriminate, inhumane nature of chemical weapons and the impact they have on people's lives and livelihoods. Keeping this impact before our eyes and working to address it can only reinforce our commitment to eliminating these weapons forever and ensuring that they never return. It is in this area that this year's recipients of the OPCW The Hague Award have made a very tangible difference, both in how we respond to chemical attacks and how help the survivors. Their work speaks to the value their generation places not only on working towards a future free of chemical weapons, but also teaching the next generation to approach this task in a responsible manner and with high commitment. In closing, I invite you all to once again congratulate Professor Hay and Professor Balalimod.
I would like to thank the Director General for his inspiring remarks. We now come to the most important aspect of our gathering here today, and that is the presentation of the second annual OPCW The Hague Award to our two deserving recipients. I would ask the Director General and the Deputy Mayor to come forward and to make the presentation of the medals and the certificates to Professor Alistair Hay and Professor Magdi Balalimud.